So I thought today that I would do, let's start this over. Hi. So I thought that I would go over my homeschool plan for this year. We do kind of an eclectic, and I have like almost an unschooling philosophy, although I still, we still require school. So it's not quite unschooling, but I personally want us to learn things together. And I just think this is a really valuable time to learn lots of things together. But one of my biggest problems with school is that it's compulsory, which to a lot of people is like obvious, that it should be. You gotta make kids do, not gonna do. But what I think it ends up doing the way that we do it now is teaches kids to hate school. So I can do a longer video about why I homeschool the way that I do and just kind of everything that goes into it, because it does confuse some people. So if you're not on the same page as me and you're not like a unschooling, eclectic homeschooler kind of person, then you might not understand, or you might not like what we're doing for school. Another focus in our school is a classical education. And so I can also go into more of what that means, but I really just pulled things out of like a classical curriculum, classical conversations to guide us. But the biggest part of where I want to pull in classical education is classical literature. And we're not even doing that right now. We're reading The Hobbit. So what I decided to do this year was pick 10 subjects, and then my son can just pick what 2 subjects for every 5 days of the week. He'll wake up that morning and he'll say, I want to do this subject and this subject. And then with some subjects, I'll probably even ask him if he'd rather do it by himself or with me. And then I'll set up the day for what we're going to do. And I would have already kind of planned all of the subjects ahead of time. And then the day of, it's just kind of more, details and getting things set up. So first we have science. And what I decided to do with science this year was not use any kind of curriculum or even suggest what we're going to study, because kids really study science naturally. And so what I decided to do was, I'm saying that a lot, decided. It made more sense to just make intentional time for them to ask their own questions and be led by their own curiosity. And this was kind of something that came up for me recently as I was like trying to self-study and do my own things. And then I kept picking up other people's like outlines and their questions and their, how they lay things out. And then it would not answer the questions that I wanted to answer. And I just think there's a really natural process that happens when we have our own question and then we go find the answer. And so that's what we're going to do with science in particular. So we'll keep a science journal, and he can have days where he's just recording questions that he has, or days that we're answering questions, or both. With all subjects, it'll be like a minimum of 30 minutes to an hour, and with this one especially, it's just like creating a little bit of space. Like, we're gonna think about what we're curious about right now. Or, maybe it comes up naturally. He's asking a question. I say, hey, will you please go write that in your science journal? That way you can look that up during that time. And then that also will encourage like just how to look up answers and how to find answers in books and online. Also, instead of it just being curiosity led, because I'm sure there will be seasons where he's not really coming up with his own stuff, I'll just tie our other subjects to science, because that's just really easy to do. To be learning something about history, maybe even math, and then tie it back to something in science. So, and then math, we've been doing a program called Saxon Math for a couple of years, and I really like it. At least the content, but it is, for what I think is necessary, like way too much. And I'll actually rephrase that. Like, I don't blame anyone for wanting to do like a full math curriculum, but to me that just doesn't make sense. And so with Saxon, I just found that the more I tried to push on both of us, like trying to keep up with this curriculum, even if I kept it really minimal, it just wasn't working. But what I've kind of realized over the last few weeks is that my son's already, he's very capable of the math of his grade, but he resists it a lot when it's on paper. So for example, what like inspired me letting him lead math this year was, or at least just being at peace with where he's at, like not needing to push anything, was he came in with like a pretty complicated like math problem for me that he already had worked out, and he was asking me the question. And so I just was like, why am I forcing math on him when he does this? He's always done this very naturally, where he asks math questions, and I feel like making him sit down to do math is just going to make him hate math when he's really good at it naturally. So what I told him was he would set up his own curriculum for this year, which did not at all go the way that I hoped. We went to the library and set up, I picked out a bunch of books for him to just look through and find what he was curious about. He did not understand the assignment, was not interested, but he picked out a couple books that, I'll actually go get those real quick. So this I'm actually just going to read. I'm really enjoying the beginning of it, but I don't understand quite what the point is that he's making it. It's called The Math Myth and Other STEM Delusions. And I think the basis of it is I guess that we have an over focus on math and not enough focus in other areas. Like morals is one that he brought up, but also like language, like these are the things that make up character. And that's just been coming up lately. That math is like a really good way to synthesize and like bring something from a real life situation into something that we can break down and say things about it, but it lacks humanity. And so I think that's kind of what this book is about. We're gonna see. So I'm gonna read that just on my own. And then Oliver picked out this book. I have no idea how the camera's okay. Math with Bad Drawings, and it's starting out great too, because it's talking about the problems with how I shouldn't say that. I'll just say it talks about how children are taught math and then why they're so resistant to it. That's the first part, at least. And then yeah, it just goes through concepts of math. And I think this will actually help me teach math the way that I want, because there's like a bunch of fundamental lessons in math, and I think we just miss out on it by needing it to be like, okay, we're gonna learn this now, and then we're gonna learn this, and then we're gonna learn this, and we're gonna test on it. I just think there's something that's missed when we don't just like get curious about it, just like anything else. So I'm gonna be reading that and then I'm gonna kind of pick curriculum out of this. So I'll give you an example. The first page that Oliver went to, which of course I'm not gonna find it right away. Excuse me. It was a page with a mini-sided dice on it. This is maybe it. I can't find it, but I instantly thought of a bunch of ways to turn that into a lesson. Probability, and then even just playing games with the dice brings about math really easily. And then my extra kid, he pulled out yesterday a dice and then just started doing math with it. Just started out with a number and then and like, that's one thing, to just practice your math. If we're working on multiplication, then you can do it that way. Or he was just doing pluses and minuses, and I just think math is like it's such a part of life that you can't not do it. It's going to happen. And if just for anyone who's curious, there's a lot of stories out there from like unschoolers and people like that didn't learn from a traditional math curriculum and then later decide to go into college or higher education, and that's what Oliver might want to do. He's been very interested for a long time in being an engineer, which he would need to go to college for. And so if that concerns you with trying not to use a math curriculum, I encourage you to look up just unschoolers' stories about not learning math, because they just get what they need, or if they do want higher education, they just learn what they need to learn to do it. And I know that sounds really scary and like crazy, but I think that's how we hand our child's education to them, is we let them make decisions about it. Just enough so that they're an active participant, and then trust that they're going to learn what they need to know. And I can talk about that more if people want to hear more about my... Yeah? Real quick. What's up, bud?
I'll listen to his project just so you know.
Why are you telling me that?
Because his project is drawing, but also if he leaves Rumble while he's doing it, then okay, bye.
Okay, bye. My good God. I get it. I get why that sounds so scary to people, but to me, that's how you make education a part of their life, and not just, here's this thing we're going to hand you, and we're just going to assume we know what you need to. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't compute. And I know I'm being kind of lazy about my explanation, but again, I can make another video because I get it. I get why it feels really scary, but I think we've been lied to. That's why it feels really scary. Then Spanish. I should see how long this video is taking. Longer than I meant it to, but that's okay. Then Spanish, we're gonna start with base words. I just got this chart. I think it's from Lakeshore. Now I can't remember. It was some random place with just a bunch of charts and school stuff. I don't remember where it was. But it goes into numbers, colors, regular, just day-to-day words. And so we're just gonna do like, I don't know, 10 words a week, something like that, maybe a little bit more, and just practice those. And I again, I'm not gonna follow a certain timeline or anything like this. We're gonna pick up with the first list of words that I get, and we're gonna just do those until he's got them. And then I'm gonna know what would be appropriate to do next, instead of having it all set up ahead of time and then having to try to stick with that. It just never works for us. And also you lose just the intuitive nature of like a kid's curiosity when you're just forcing these deadlines. So art, I'm using this book, which I haven't even opened yet, but I think that it'll fit just fine. I just need a little bit of instruction. We're just gonna start with drawing and just do basics drawing. See, this and this is probably a lot of what it'll look like in the beginning, is like repetitive doodling, which helps just train your hand. But it's also not something challenging, so you're not training your hand and trying to learn this technique at the same time. Did I say that right? I'm not trying to get like hand control and learn a technique at the same time. But we'll go into shading and perspective and all that stuff. So keep that pretty simple. And then music, my son's in drums, and then he'll be practicing drums every day, but then that's separate from school. And then we're going to listen to Peter and the Wolf, which I'm really excited about. I watched it. A friend really loved that movie as a kid, and I found the soundtrack, but then I also found a narrated version where David Bowie narrates, and it's the actual story along with the music. And so all the animals are different instruments, and I think that'll be really cool. Another thing, just to add this in, I've also been playing that soundtrack to just make it more familiar, because classical music doesn't come naturally to children to like. And so if they hear it repetitively and it's familiar to them, I think I just heard the quote, it was like, familiarity breeds interest or something like that. It just makes it easy, more palatable. For English this year, we were in classical conversations, and they have like a really robust English program, and I think that's so great. And I think that will give kids a lot of tools to like be really amazing writers and really understand language. But that's, for me personally, we're letting go of that approach. I think there's just lots to love about writing, and again, forcing it too early would cause someone they would be able to write. Someone requests in the future that they write something. But would that encourage them to journal or write essays just for the fact of trying to understand something? That's like something no one thinks about doing as adults, is like writing an essay just so they can like fully get their own understanding of that. And that's what I'm finding in my adulthood, is I just have these questions I want to answer, and I would love to spend time sitting down and writing them, but I hate sitting down and writing. It takes everything in my body, there's a squirrel, to sit down and do that. And I don't think it would be that way if I, as a kid, just naturally picked up a notebook and wrote whenever I wanted to. And I'm not saying, we're going to do instructions. It's not just when Oliver wants to pick up a notebook, but I try to avoid resistance and just like numbing out and doing it. And so to do English in a way that Oliver stays engaged, the writing, like writing stories and writing out things, I've decided is gonna be, that's for later if I'm ever gonna ask him to do that. Right now, any kind of conveying information will be done orally. And then for English, we're just gonna focus on spelling for a little while, because he's great at reading, but he just doesn't understand how to spell quite yet. And so we're just gonna do like a little spelling bee every week. And then also parts of speech. And I think that'll start to build his ability to write really slowly without overwhelming him. I skipped over history, which is what I'm most excited about this year. I'm reading, this is actually what I'm reading, and I haven't gotten very far. Mere Natural Law, Originalism and the Anchoring Truths of the Constitution. So I'm not even gonna explain this too much. I just think one thing that we really lack in today's society is where we came from. We just, and I've felt this way a lot of my life, we just feel like all these things, systems and rules and ways that we've made things were just kind of like, I don't know, they don't really come from anything, just like rules and tradition of old men. And I don't think that's true at all. I think that we as humans have been putting these things together for the whole time we've existed, and like tried to find the best way to do things. And I think documents like the Constitution, the Bible, they're places where there's been so much human experience, and then it got brought into a place where it can continue to be shared and be our tradition. And I don't understand why, and I don't know anything about the Constitution pretty much. And I think that me learning about the Constitution and then walking through a history lesson with where we've ended up and what actually works well and why, that'll just shine a light on our history lessons and like how were things done and why did they maybe change. So what we're gonna do is go through the CC timeline, sort of. I'm adding in my own stuff a little bit here and there. I do want to show you though, because this is mostly our backbone. Should not take long to find, but it is taking a second for some reason. Anyways, I'll just show you the book. This is the CC, like just foundations book, and it goes through every week. It's not a good example. It's actually almost where I need to be. Oh my god, this is so silly. I can't find anything. This is bananas. Now I'm going to the pages that I was looking for before. Okay, so it goes through a week. History, geography, English, Latin, math, science, and then, yeah, that's another week. And the way that they do this is you practice this section of all these subjects, just these particular points, for the whole week. And we might actually end up doing that because a lot of these, having these things memorized really helps as you're learning because you're already familiar with them. But what we're using for sure is the timeline. So that is all of the events from creation until now. And so like, for example, this is the first week, and this will be, I'm still trying to figure out how to cram this all in. I think that what I'll do eventually is have, anyways, I'm still very much working out like how to fit in these lessons, because some of these things I want to talk about one point that week and have that be the entire lesson. And the way this is set up is it's 5 points in 1 week. So I just won't be able to do like an entire lesson on all of them. So that's why I also maybe might want to go through and memorize all this week to week. That way we're getting the timeline, but then we're also getting a robust history lesson, instead of just the points. I also used this to fill in some of the gaps and kind of guide through. I'm going to show you this in case you're curious of what they show you. I hope this is showing up. This is like the first half of the year of all the points, all the events in history. And we're going to deal with creation and evolution, and I just want to be able to have lots of conversations about that. So we probably won't follow this timeline exactly. I'm guessing that we'll be throwing a lot of stuff out or just memorizing the timeline for some of it and not doing any lesson. So I'm still very much figuring that out. And then, so the basis of our history lesson for a day will be me teaching a lesson, and then Oliver will narrate back to me what he's learned. And for all these subjects, I'll actually read on that just a second. And then literature is just reading and discussion. This is the number one thing I want to cultivate in my house. I'm forgetting 2 lessons that I added later. That's okay. I'll do that in just a second. Is like thinking about literature and even movies and things, just like spending more time with the material and really digging into it together. That's what I would like to do. So yeah, that'll just be reading and discussion. The other 2 things that I added in were Bible study and character and skill development, I think is what I'm calling it. Bible study, we're going to start with Psalms this year because I feel like my son needs like emotional support from the Bible. And so I just think that Psalms is a really great place to just hear of the goodness of God and not have to learn a history lesson or be taught morals, but just really learn about the comfort that the Lord provides. And then the other thing is character and skill building. And this is just going to go week by week. I'll probably start pulling things out of this. This is Laying Down the Rails, Charlotte Mason. To be quite honest, I have a very hard time using her material because of the way that she applies things. And I think it's because I was public schooled. She's very much about principles and then just like, it's not specific instruction most of the time. She just gives you these little ideas and thoughts, and then you kind of have to figure out how to apply them. And not entirely, like she'll give you, let's see. So there's a bunch of quotes. So the quotes aren't to like be instructive. They're to like get this information into your heart and to your head, like the knowledge of it. And so that you can convey this instead of like just creating rules to create character, because just creating a rule to create character doesn't really get very far with all things. So we're going to be going through this. It has things like courage, diligence, fortitude, generosity, respect for other people, temperance, thrift, patience, meekness. So we'll start with this, like picking a characteristic out of it, a character trait, and then I'll develop more around it. This is going to very much be intuitively led, based on where the kids are at. And like, for example, cleanliness is in here. How do we need to bring cleanliness in the house? What's our kind of standard and our rules around that? Okay, and then the other thing I got for this is 12 Rules Boot Camp by the Tuttle Twins. What's up? Quickly.
Can I turn on Avatar: The Last Airbender?
No, you guys just play for a while. You can watch TV at lunch.
But it's device time, so yeah, it's on devices.
Well, we'll talk in a minute. He's grounded. Okay, I am almost done. Okay, so I got, this is like a Tuttle Twins version of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And I'm sure it's like great for kids, but like I don't get how it's broken up. Like it's not. You can tell I really like things like broken up a certain way, but I resist it also at the same time. So we've been reading this just in the morning, and then I'll probably use this in more detail. I'm not really sure. This might end up just being a morning reading, and then I might actually pull out his actual book and then teach after I've read a chapter out of that. But this is a short read, and you know, it gets you through all the pause to appreciate, take control of myself before taking on the world. And the story follows like one of the Tuttle Twins family members who like just needs to step up a little bit, and they go through that. So I think that'll be good. So what I'll do is hand Oliver a list of all the subjects for the week, and then every day he'll pick 2, mark them off, and then I'll plan the day. Almost all of our subjects will have a notebook attached, and we won't have much worksheets and stuff like that. It'll mostly be Oliver, or I might even be recording sometimes, just what we've done to keep track of that. And then that will also be a place for Oliver to narrate and say, this is what I'm learning, or this is the next question I have. So yeah, we're keeping notebooks for almost every subject to encourage that. But subjects like music, art, literature, I like put all those in one, because I don't think we'll have a ton that we'll need to write about those things. So that's it. I'd love to answer any questions you guys have about the materials that we're using, or how we're going about things. I've been homeschooling, I'll use the term loosely. I've been homeschooling since Oliver has gone to like a couple of semesters in school just because of life circumstances. But for the most part, I've been attempting to homeschool all of his school time. And we have struggled a lot. We just had life stuff going on. And I wasn't engaged the way that I would like to be. And so the last 2 years, I would say, is really when I've been able to really be conscious of what we're doing. But luckily, I already had this intention of unschooling and letting a lot of this stuff to develop naturally, and not really getting into very much compulsory learning until later, like kind of right now, maybe even a little older. So I've had the last couple years of my brain kind of being back and just being able to take the vision that I had and actually turn it into school. And I'm just slowly starting to see that that is working. But to be honest, like the way that I teach takes a lot of trust, and it takes convincing every day of myself that just because we see things done a certain way doesn't mean that that's the only way to do things. I don't need to see the mile markers to know that he's going to be fine in the future. I can go into this more in another video, but I just want to say kind of a radical statement, which is I think it's kind of crazy that we think that people need to be taught so much, that kids, by the time they hit 18 and they have just life experiences, that they won't just know how to do a lot of things that they need to do. And I think as parents, we should just want them to enjoy good literature and know history, but that doesn't necessarily have to look like a curriculum or anything like that. It can just look like day-to-day conversations, which is what a lot of our life has looked like. A ton of playing, and then me trying my hardest, even though I'm not great at always being available mentally. I'm a busybody. So my biggest job in the way that I do school is to just take every opportunity for curiosity and feed it. Like I said, I'm not always the best at that, but I just try to create a lot of space in my home so that they're following the things that they're interested in and they have time to do that. And I think school really takes away from what kids would naturally be doing productive with that time. So that's all I have for today. Have a good one.